First of all, welcome to you all for coming here for these lightning talks. It's a bit of a run, you will see, but we're doing good. Unfortunately, one of the speakers could not make it, so Kiteri Lucas from France Université Numérique will not be giving her lightning talk, unfortunately. However, starting here with Eran Raviv, who is Senior Director of Tech Training and Enablement at Cyber Reason, will talk to us today about high-tech goodbye unemployment. And by the way, Q&A will be one session in the end, okay? Thanks. Oh, sorry. Useful.
Hi, everyone. If I would ask you what's the first association you have in mind when you see this flag, what would you say? Hummus. Army. Hospitality. Okay. Nice weather. Okay, so camels. Many people say camels. Yeah. Immigrants, people coming from many countries around the world, the land of the Bible, and the Israeli-Arab conflict. In the last 30 years, Israel has been also known as the startup nation. But, and the next 10 minutes is going to be about the but. Okay? And let's start with why Israel is considered as the startup nation. As you can see, compared to the OECD countries, Israel is in a good place, but closer to the middle. But when you speak about investment on R&D, Israel is the first in the world. When you speak about the number of R&D people, you can see Israel is the first by far. And Israel has the highest density of startups in the world. Taking the employed population, there is one startup for every 1,300 people, which is quite unique. The reasons for that, by the way, are two. One was mentioned before, the army, the fact that there is a compulsory service in Israel, which means everyone goes to the army, and as you know, the history of the internet, ARPANET was born in the US Army, so it accelerates technology. And the other reason is immigrants. 9 of 10 people that when the State of Israel established were from abroad. And immigrants are population that are taking risks. And startups and high-tech is about risk-taking. But as I said, not everyone is enjoying this celebration. Only 10% of the population is employed in high-tech, and there are 3 sectors that are left behind. The Arab sectors, the ultra-Orthodox sector, and the women's sector. The people that sit in the front of the train are usually white, secular, and men. And this project I'm going to speak about was about having these people from the back of the train become and participate the celebration in the front of the train. So Campus IL vision is to narrow social gaps using digital learning. And 2 years ago, as the COVID pandemic started, we thought that could be a good leverage to take underprivileged communities and help them get to the high-tech industry, because everyone was learning online. So it doesn't, if you come from Eilat or Kiryat Shmona, which are rural areas in Israel, it doesn't affect you because everyone is distance learning. So for those of you who don't know Campus.il is Israel's national online platform established in 2016 based on open edX technology. More than 500,000 enrolled learners, many youngsters, as you can see, and lots of great high-tech courses of the best universities. And the high-tech industry is super successful, but there is a serious lack of manpower. You can see it's thousands of engineers, R&D experts that are missing. And that was one of the drivers to start the High-Tech 101 program, aimed for those underserved populations, or those populations that don't take part of the high-tech industry. How did we do that? It started with marketing and promotion. We used digital media. Say, if you don't need any experience, if you have a good high school certification and you have motivation to join the high-tech, just click here. We had 4,000 people who enrolled. Then the first 3 weeks were open to everyone. Everyone that wanted to start learning, both synchronous and asynchronous learning, based on the courses in the Campus.il platform, and synchronous lessons with high-tech experts. They all could join. And then there was a screening test that only the 50 people who got the higher grades and participated in the population I've just mentioned were in the small group classroom that got aid with practice and office hours and mentorship, and they were the target of the program. And then the continuous learning. This is a chart that demonstrates the process. First 3 weeks, 3 initial meetings. After these 3 initial meetings, you could have decided to take the track of self-learning. And if you didn't pass the test, you could have continued with the self-paced learning. It's all free. And if you pass the test, you entered the small group that gets aid in the process. So essentially, each learner that passed the test got a 12 weekly online lessons, office hours, exercises, presentation. There was a kind of a capstone project within the courses, a certificate at the end, and they could have get academic entitlement as well. Let's look at the pilot summary, the outcomes and conclusions. Great. So probably the result that we're mostly proud of was the completion rate. So usually, and you remember those who decided to take the self-paced track, only 12% of those finished and got certificate, compared to 75% who completed the course with the aid of the office hours, mentors, exercises, etc. And you can see there was a very high participation of the Arab, ultra-Orthodox, Ethiopians sectors, people with disabilities, and women. they we had surveys throughout the program, and 70% said that without this hybrid model and without this mentorship, they wouldn't have passed the course. Even there were some participants that tried to take the same course for 3 or 4 times before but didn't finish it. Using this model, they were able to do that. And as you can see, more than half were unemployed or partially employed. And it was, the feedbacks were terrific. And you can see the charts demonstrating the fact that comparing to previous projects that were self-paced, the high percentage of assignment turning in, dropping out of the course, and in a different, there were 3 different courses. It's important to say that this was a partnership with an NGO named Scale Up Velocity, which helps underserved population get to the high tech with the top leading universities in Israel, the Hebrew University, Tel Aviv University, the Reichman University, and the Technological Institute of Holon, and sponsored by the Ministry of Economics of the Israeli government. And one thing that we're very proud of, you can see the high percentage of those populations that came from the underserved communities. And you can take a look at the comparison between the people who enrolled at the beginning and the number of people from different age groups and employment statuses that graduated the program. So in conclusion, we thought a very successful project that is now scaling up, and 98% satisfaction, which is very unusual speaking about digital learning. Consider the fact that they never met their instructors. And regarding the hybrid model, as you can see, only 23.5% said they could have made this journey without using the hybrid model. So with that, I'll conclude. The CEO of Campus IL, Asaf Weiss, is the leader of this project. Feel free to contact him for any more details. We have Merav, Roy, and Avishai from Campus IL that'd be able to also help with answers, with questions you have regarding this. And this is Anat, who is a VP at Scale Up Velocity NGO that I mentioned before. It was the leader from the NGO sector of this initiative. Thank you very much.
All right. So let's follow up with Ratan Deep Singh, who is CEO of Skill Up Online, and he's talking to us today about TA as a service.
Thank you. All right. Awesome session, Campus IL, and awesome session, Mark and JPS just before that one. I am Ratan. I work at Skill Up Group, and my topic for the day is driving deeper learning with teaching assistance as a service. I think what JPS and Mark spoke about a little while back, that was metaverse and how that's so exciting. I don't know if I'm going to be able to match up to that or not, but here I'm going to talk about here and now, what we can do to really make an impact in the online learning world. I'm going to start off by saying what a phenomenal rise the online learning world has seen. All of us have seen in the past 1 decade, especially thanks to edX, thanks to the MOOC world, where it's now an option for people to go and learn on their own. It is phenomenal, but there is always a but. I'm going to talk about. I'm going to actually ask the group, what do you think is online learning industry's one glaring problem?
I would say engagement would be one of them.
Bang on, absolutely. I think that's what we all are struggling with here and now. It is the engagement. Now, if you look at the numbers, I think the Campus CL folks said that they had for the self-paced 12%, which is kudos, because the industry average of a self-paced course in the MOOC world is anywhere between 3 to 8%, which is phenomenally low when you compare it with the physical classroom world, which goes up to 80, 90, or 100%. In my view, so here it is. And the low learner engagement leads to even lower course completion rates, and that's just a big problem, I believe, worth solving for all of us as one community. Now, if you ask me, how do you solve this problem, I see solutioning across 3 buckets. One bucket is the platform bucket, the second bucket is the content bucket when we create the courses, and the third bucket is around the support or the services you can add on top of platform and content. So there are a few examples, what we can do at a platform level. There are many examples, I just picked few here. One is you can develop these engaging utilities to engage the learners in your online self-paced courses. Another example is you can add gamification at a platform level which will get the learners excited and try to bring them on the platform even more. And then there could be social learning or social media aspects that you can plug into the platform, which will make sure that the learners are engaged and are able to go through deeper learning and complete the courses. The second bucket is content, and I think we've all been talking about it in different language, different ways. How can we create engaging course design for the online learning world? How can we, from the boring text-based learning, how can we add more infographics, rich media? How can we create shorter, engaging videos? How can we use animations to explain concepts instead of, again, the boring stuff? How can we add snackable, nugget-based content, hands-on work, and gamifications at a course level? The third bucket, and that's where I'm going to focus on, is the support layer, the service layer that you can add on a self-paced content that can really, I believe, drive the engagement up. It is the human touch on the self-paced that can really make that difference. And I think the top of the list comes the teaching assistance as a service. That's where I'm going to double down today in the talk, is how can you effectively implement teaching assistance? It's a very simple concept, it's an age-old concept, but how can you effectively implement it in the modern day online learning format to make sure your learners are engaged? Then you can obviously do cohorts, other office hours, and instructor interventions to solve this problem of low engagement. I'm not going to go deep into what it is. I think we all know what teaching assistance is. But I just want to say on this slide that when we talk about teaching assistance, the default mind in the online world goes to a discussion board where there are course mentors helping out. But in today's day and age, teaching assistance in the online world should not just be viewed as that discussion board support. We saw metaverse, right? So you could have teaching assistants running in a metaverse in the coming days, and we are planning to do that. You could have chatbots, live interactions happening from the teaching assistants, and a tech in the coming years. You will start seeing AI based, so the tech can join hands with human touch to make that engagement better and better. The how part. Now, a couple of things behind the scenes I want to talk about. Two key elements that really makes teaching assistant service works. We've seen a lot of people deploy teaching assistants, but for some it does not work. Sometimes the learners just don't engage. So what is the secret sauce? What is the secret sauce that's going to make it work in an online learning world? We've been doing this for 7 years, 7 years plus, working with some of the biggest tech companies running their learning programs like IBM, Microsoft, Lenovo, many more, and providing this service on edX and Coursera and some of the biggest platforms in the world. And we've kind of cracked the code, we believe, because we have really been doing results while delivering this service and really driving engagement up just by installing this one single service as a solution. So two key elements I want to talk about, I think, are very important to successfully running this service. One is the service design of a service. So it is not just that you pick up some people and say, hey, you're going to start doing the teaching assistants. It's not going to work like that. There is a whole process. There's a whole process that you got to be looking at. There's got to be who are the people you're going to pick for the service, depending on your target audience, your programs. How are they going to get onboarded? What is going to be the ramp up that they have? And how are they going to get into improving the service? And the whole lot of art and science goes into defining the service delivery design of this service. The next is my favorite element, and that is the methodology of it. Methodology means this will define the tone of the service, teaching assistance being provided. Now, on one side of the spectrum, you can give a very customer care kind of a service to your learners, right? So a learner comes to the teaching assistant, gives a problem, and you just give the exact answer back to them. Well, that works. That for some of our programs, that really works, but not for all. On the other side of the spectrum, it could be more instructor-type teacher approach, where you could go all the way to the other end on kind of a Socratic questioning model, where when a student comes to you with a question, instead of giving the answer, what you want to do is ask him 3 questions and make him dwell deeper, think, and find the answer himself or herself, right? So I mean, for us, this is the fun conversation I always enjoy. If you ask me which is the best methodology, Ratan, I would say a hybrid is what works best for our programs, but it's always a conversation to see what methodology we want to apply. I want to talk about the why, and I'm coming to the end of my presentation. I'm going to leave you with 4 whys why teaching assistants, just a simple service we know, most of us know, can make a tremendous impact in engaging engaging your audiences, yourself in the self-paced learning format. So the first why is it's a flexible plug-and-play service the way we run it. When we were looking at the solutions, the bucket of solutions platform will have its own set of restrictions when you want to engage your learners, right? So you as a course creator or a program manager of the course will have restrictions with what platform can offer. Same thing goes for content a lot of times, because you are running a project of content creation based on time, money, and timelines. A lot of times you may not be able to do things you want to do as an instructional designer or a course creator. But this is one service you could pull in, you can just plug and play at any point of time and see the results coming your way immediately. The second is immediate results. If done right, this service will start engaging the learners on day 1, and that is beautiful. We have so many programs running where we have partners coming in to say, I have a self-paced course, it's a lifeless course. I don't see enrollments happening. And when we do this, implement this service, the next day you start interaction happening. And within weeks, you start seeing increased completion rates, and that's phenomenal. The third aspect I love is it is not just about engagement. It's also for the course team to look at those discussion boards, those interactions, and go back and improve your courses. It is phenomenal amount of wealth. And in our experience, to improve your course, sometimes you don't have to go back and boil the oceans. It is those small nuances. And this is the platform, this is the place where you can get those feedback, those micro things that you want to go back and improve your courses on. Lastly, it is guaranteed, if done right, it is guaranteed to increase your course ratings. So in the end, I would just like to conclude by saying that upskilling and reskilling is a huge mandate in the global world today. Referring to this World Economic Forum Future of Jobs report, it says in these 5 years, we are expecting 85 million jobs to be displaced and 97 million new jobs to be created, thanks to AI, technology disruption, cloud, metaverse, whatnot. And physical classrooms cannot provide that. It is the online learning world. It is all of us who have to drive this together, right? But this glaring problem must be solved. I strongly believe just by implementing this one teaching assistance as a service, you can transform the learning and really help, help drive upskilling and reskilling in the world. Thank you. That's my time.
Yeah, I just wanted to know whether you have LTI yet?
Please repeat the question.
Your question is, do we have LTI integration?
Integration to OpenEdX?
Absolutely, we do. Yes, we do have LTI integration services. edX itself offers the discussion board. That's the base version of it. But if you want to add chatbots, we do have sort of. Yes, absolutely. Yes. We can do all of that. We can talk after that. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Yeah.
All right, so last but not least, we have Avishai Friedler. I hope I'm pronouncing this right. Head of BizDev at Campus Israel, and he will be talking to us about using podcasts to increase learner engagement in MOOCs.
Thank you very much. So now you all know that Israel is not only camels. We have also goats and etc. I want to start with a question. How many of you have their 2 or 3 favorite podcasts they listen to and they are loyal to? You don't have a favorite podcast? No? And how many? Yeah. I agree. I agree. And which of you is listening on a daily basis or weekly basis to a podcast that deals with our ecosystem, digital learning? Okay, nice. So why don't we just, if it's such a huge trend nowadays, the podcast, why don't we embed it into our worlds of MOOC? So as Eran said before, Campus IL is a joint venture of the government of Israel and the Council for Higher Education. Now we are located under the Ministry of Economy, and we have dozens of partners from academic units and government units, leading universities in Israel. And you've heard about the numbers, which are just growing since the world pandemic. And we cover really maybe too wide audience. It's like puzzles from the age of, we start from K-12, we start from the age of 13 or 14 till the age of 120, covering all these fields. So it's a real challenge in the means of marketing. And this is the vision that guides us, as Eran told you. And when you're talking about such a wide audience, the marketing challenge is really problematic, because you don't know whether to point youngsters or old citizens or students, and it's very complicated. So these are the main challenges we're facing. First is increasing the exposure of the awareness. Our studies show that awareness to Campus IL is very, very low. Although the 700,000 learners, people do not know campus in Israel, but meanwhile, when they faced Campus IL in the study, they were all excited and wanted to enroll. So it's an interesting gap. We want to bring the most relevant content to our wide audience, and that's another challenge. When you send newsletter or when you have this audience, how to give them the most relevant so they not put you in a spam or whatever, and give a taste of the course. Lots of learners are excited about the About page, enroll, and then understand that it's not the bride that they were looking for. And another thing is improve the learners' engagement inside the course and to be like to be like the trend of to meet their lifestyle. So they say that that timing is everything. So we started a few months before the world pandemic. This is Asaf Weiss, our CEO, and is a former expert in communication in Israel. And he launched really a few weeks before the world pandemic. He launched the Masters, which is 25 minutes show meetings. Thanks, Asaf. We have 40 episodes, and it's available on video format and also on podcast on all the channels. And this we have many good answers for these questions. So first is format which is easy, fast, and really cheap, compared to MOOC, and that allows us to catch the zeitgeist. We were the first digital initiative who did it in our field in Israel, so this differentiated us from our competitors. It's a great on-the-go solution. We have courses for mindfulness, for nature, etc. It's very good. Voice has its power. You can build intimacy with the audience. So it makes us familiar, and it strengthens the brand and the trust. And you cannot learn programming by podcast. But if you took few chapters in the MOOC of program, then you can make what they call second-order learning channel. If you're familiar, if you have a formal knowledge in some field, a podcast can be a great solution and can be like an addition inside the MOOC. So now on, we have 40 episodes and we gained 100,000 listeners. It's quite impressive number compared to the small Israeli market. Maybe you recognize here a guest of honor we had in one of our meetings, Professor Anant Agarwal, and maybe one of the chapters, the first one, yeah, Eran. Eran was the guest. And you can find it on Spotify and all the famous and familiar channels. And you can find it also, again, as I said, to give a taste of the course, you can find it embedded in the About page of dozens of courses. So you can learn a bit about mindfulness before you take the course. And that's a great channel, because people are taking these MOOCs at the beach, at the nature, at the park, while driving the car, being in train, whatever. So you can find them and reach them like in a multi-channel way. And another place, it can be embedded again inside the LMS. This course actually is a course that developed by the Ministry of Education in Israel, and this course teaches how to use podcasts in class for teachers. So they are listening and inside the course. And we have a very cute, cool part of the episodes. In every episode, Asaf asks the guest, what have they learned in this horrible world pandemic in the last 2 or 1 year? And here is the answer of Professor Aharon Chakanover, which is a Nobel Prize winner. He said that we learned a lot about how dangerous the media can be in the context of misinformation, in the means of vaccination. And another guest was Professor Liad Mudrik, that said that as a researcher, COVID-19 taught her a lesson of modesty. And here's the last, another example of Adi Yofe. She said that as a futurist, she learned how important it is to concentrate on the present and enjoy the little thing. And as of myself, I can say that I've learned at the head of business development in Campus IL how powerful is this tool and how easy and cheap it is. So I hope you find it interesting, and I really recommend this channel. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Avishai. So we have time for questions. Any of the three speakers can take questions now. So Eran, Ratan, and Avishai, any questions for them? Okay.
Great, thank you. First of all, thanks all of you. This was like incredible presentations, and I love hearing all this innovation. So this is actually a question for you, Avishai, about the podcast. So I love this idea of sort of distributing the learning as sort of a content strategist. I'm just super curious if you could talk a little bit more about like how do you decide what content goes on the podcast compared to what content goes on the course? Is there overlap? Is it more of a promotional piece? I'm just kind of curious sort of how you guys decide what to actually record on the podcast.
Thanks. So there is no one kind of a podcast. There is like a podcast for marketing that we can put, on a Spotify or an About page, and you have another kind of podcast which is embed inside the LMS. And I think that who choose the subject of the podcast is like our audiences. They ask for a podcast about this course, or the course teams. When a course team sees the numbers of the target audience, they want also to come and to be guests at our podcast. So it's not one kind of a podcast. It's like a tailor-made podcast, for your need.
Any other questions for our speakers? Nope, no takers? Oh, Pat, sure.
It's another one around the podcast, so forgive me for the other two gentlemen just because I came late into the session, but I'll catch you afterwards. So are you able to with any metrics of either how long the podcast gets listened to? Is there a sort of drop off in any sort of way? Are you able to observe that side of things? Yeah. And also then is there any sort of, I don't know if you like follow through, then do you see the users who listen to the podcast most regularly contribute more to the forums or have higher scores in upload assignments and that sort of thing?
So, although we are on the early stage of this podcast channel, I can say that the numbers, I didn't present them there, but the numbers of the completion rate of the chapters is very high. I think the reason is that people are listening to this podcast while washing the dishes, and their hands are wet to stop it, or they are driving the cars, or they're running. So it's I think that compared to other podcasts, it's very short. It's only 25 minutes length. So our audience is very loyal, and they keep it almost till the end. And nowadays, we're building, with KPIs, and we're tracking the conversion from the podcast inside. And it's as I said, it's a multi-channel. Yeah.
Maybe I'll just add to that, continuing Ildi's question. So it's more like a radio interview. So there's a research that comes before about the person that is going to be interviewed, and cherry-picked questions. So the medium is prepared for not like a learning piece, but more of a conversation with the person who leads the MOOC.
We get the assistance of Tal Florentin, which is a UX expert and also for audio learning in Israel. And he gives the example of the feature of WhatsApp that you can, just edit, just record your voice and not text. So this podcast, another use we're having is to summarize like a long text or article or whatever. So at the end of the chapter can be a summarize of the content. So it's like really for any need we can make it. Yeah, of course.
Just a quick one. So about the podcast again. If we want to listen to it right now, so we go to Spotify and it's called The Masters.
First, you will have to take a course to learn Hebrew, and 7 years later, yeah, that's for for now. Yeah, we don't have chapters in English or Arabic. Just with Anant, yeah, yeah. Maybe I'll send you the chapter with Anant, yeah, yeah.
Any other questions?
Well, I think observation is the podcast conversation is
Yeah.
So what I feel, I think,
Sorry.
I think this is very interesting, and part of my early session was that there's no one size fit all, and we've been trying very different things, but we haven't tried podcasts. So this does open. Have you tried dropping podcasts? Like you said, you summarize. That's a great use case. At least just somebody who prefers listening rather than long text format reading. And there could be others like me that I prefer reading rather than listening to a long podcast. So that does work. But how about discussion board or forum? Like Ratan, what you were talking about, can we drop a podcast link? How does that work? Just because I haven't tried that. In the forum or discussion board, TA or somebody could say, there's a great topic. We are having this discussion over and over again. Question coming in. I'll just pin a podcast here or drop it in. Do they have to do a link, or can it be embedded in the discussion board?
Of course, we can embed it, but did you mean like a discussion, an audio discussion, or?
No, the forum discussion in OpenEdX.
Yeah.
For example, that tab, if students are going in and asking questions, and there's a written conversation, threaded conversation that's happening, if a learning support person feels, let me just record a podcast and drop it because this question is coming over and over again, can they just drop it in the?
We didn't do it so far, but in my eye I can see Kirill smile. Kirill is from Anoto. It's Israeli at the company. I believe he met all of you during the days, and they can suggest such a solution for
Video,
yeah, yeah, audio and video. I saw you.
That's all the time we had for questions, but of course you can feel free to go and disturb them whenever you like afterwards. So thank you, everybody. We're going for a short coffee break. What's that? Birds of a Feather is upstairs. And Birds of a Feather is upstairs around the coffee tables.